Imagine the city just announces they're moving a group of ex-convicts into a building right across from your neighborhood park. I mean, your first instinct is probably panic, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, people immediately think about property values dropping.
Right, or safety concerns for your family. But what if a new report claimed that this exact scenario, like actually placing former inmates in the heart of a residential area, is a deliberate strategy to make that neighborhood significantly safer?
It sounds totally counterintuitive.
It really does. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're analyzing a really comprehensive report, which, by the way, you can find in both text and audio over at wikiresidence.ca and infodrone.ca, detailing a radical urban transformation plan for the Tétreaultville neighborhood.
Right, that's in Montreal's Mercier-Hochelaga-Maisonneuve borough.
Exactly, and we're looking at a single 18-unit residential building that's attempting to solve two massive societal issues at the exact same time. We're talking urban decay and the social reintegration of former inmates.
Okay, let's unpack this because the developers behind this are proposing a scenario that challenges basically every assumption we have about zoning, criminal justice, and community safety.
Yeah, they're betting that dropping the specific population into a quiet, family-oriented neighborhood isn't a liability, but an actual asset.
Which is a huge claim to make to a nervous public.
It is, but the developers are certainly aiming for what they consider a highly targeted urban intervention. Like, the goal outlined in the report is to create a true win-win scenario.
Right.
On one side, the project provides this crucial lifeline for individuals who are actively seeking to rebuild their lives after serving time. And on the other side, the proposition is that the surrounding neighborhood will actually experience an increase in security.
And local vibrancy, according to the report. Exactly. But to understand the mechanics of how the developers believe this will actually work, we have to look past the surface level assumption that this is, just another concrete apartment block.
Yeah. And we also have to look at exactly who is supposed to live in this building. That requires clearing up a major public misconception right out of the gate.
For sure.
Because when you hear the phrase housing for ex-inmates, I mean, the immediate association is a halfway house.
Oh, almost everyone assumes that.
Right. But the report emphasizes heavily that this facility is absolutely not a halfway house.
No, it's fundamentally different. So in the criminal justice system, a halfway house, which is often referred to in Quebec as a maison de transition, is a facility specifically designated for individuals who are currently out on parole.
Meaning they're still in the system.
Exactly. The defining characteristic of a halfway house is that residency is a mandatory condition of a person's release. The individuals living there are legally required to be there. They are actively under the jurisdiction of the correctional system, and their daily movements are heavily restricted and monitored by parole officers.
So a halfway house is effectively an extension of the prison system right into the community.
Precisely.
But according to the project's real estate promoter, an organization called Bâtir quartier, this new facility in Tétreaultville operates on an entirely different legal and social foundation.
It really does.
It's exclusively reserved for individuals who have completely finished serving their sentences. Like, they have fulfilled every single judicial obligation required of them. They are free citizens.
Right, their debt is paid.
Yeah. Moving into this 18-unit building is strictly voluntary.
Which fundamentally changes the whole psychological dynamic of the space. I mean, Jean-Claude Bernheim, he's the chair of the board for the John Howard Society of Quebec, the organization that will own and manage the building. He states in the report that the project responds to a need for support and stability for people seeking to reintegrate sustainably.
Right.
It's an environment built around agency. The tenants aren't there because a judge ordered them to be. They're there because they submitted an application, recognizing their own need for a structured transition back into society.
Well, wait, so it's less like an extension of the prison system and more like an alumni dorm for people actively choosing to rebuild their lives.
That's actually a pretty good way to think about it.
But if I have fully paid my debt to society, right, and the state says I am completely free to go wherever I want, I would think the ultimate goal is to blend back in.
Yeah, you'd want a fresh start.
Exactly. What is the incentive to voluntarily subject myself to a supervised facility run by a justice organization? Why wouldn't these individuals just try to rent a regular anonymous apartment and leave their past entirely behind them?
Well, the desire for anonymity is totally understandable.
Yeah.
But for someone just leaving the prison system, anonymity is frequently a massive liability.
Really? How so?
Well, the transition from a highly regimented, heavily institutionalized environment back into the absolute freedom of the outside world is notoriously overwhelming.
Right.
We have to consider the actual mechanics of re-entering society. Like, if you have been incarcerated for years, you likely have a massive gap in your employment history.
Sure.
You have zero recent rental references, your credit score might be non-existent, or just completely ruined. So when you try to rent a regular anonymous apartment, you are immediately filtered out by landlords running standard background checks.
Oh, wow. So you were basically locked out of the conventional housing market before you even get to view an apartment.
Exactly. You don't even get a foot in the door.
Mm.
Furthermore, even if someone manages to secure a standard apartment, that isolation can be incredibly dangerous for their rehabilitation.
Because they're completely alone.
Right. They're trying to find work, figure out modern banking, navigate a changed city, and rebuild social skills, often with absolutely zero safety net. The intense need for stability, for structured support, and for a peer community that understands the specific, crushing hurdles of post-prison life that far outweighs the desire to just blend in.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. For those who are genuinely serious about sustainable reintegration, an environment that offers counseling, routine, and a forgiving runway is essential. Falling through the cracks of a regular apartment building often leads straight back to the survival mechanisms that caused their incarceration in the first place.
The sheer gravity of trying to build a normal life from scratch requires a really solid foundation. And that desperate need for stability brings us to the physical location that John Howard Society chose for this building.
Which is a crucial part of the story.
Oh, totally. The site itself comes with a pretty dramatic backstory. We are talking about a vacant lot located at the intersection of Notre Dame Street East and Lierre Street.
And the geography of this specific lot is vital to understanding the developer's strategy. This intersection sits directly facing the Promenade-Bellerive Park.
Which is a gorgeous, highly trafficked area.
Beautiful area, yeah.
But this specific lot on the corner was described in the report as a wasteland. I mean, it was an abandoned, neglected space that was actively attracting squatters. It was generating a very real feeling of insecurity for the people living in Tétreaultville.
Right. In urban planning, a neglected space like that is often referred to as a blind spot. When a lot is abandoned, it lacks informal surveillance.
What does that mean exactly?
It means there are no residents looking out of their windows, no shop owners sweeping the sidewalk. It naturally becomes a magnet for unregulated activity because nobody is claiming ownership of the space.
Ah, I see.
Identifying this specific lot for redevelopment is an attempt to take a local liability, a dangerous, unmonitored corner, and replace it with a highly managed asset.
Well, the concept of fixing a neighborhood blind spot sounds incredibly logical on paper.
It does.
But the political execution behind the scenes was apparently a complete disaster. The report details how the local city councilor for the borough, Julien Henot-Rattel, admitted he was basically presented with a fait accompli, like a done deal in early 2026.
Yeah, that was messy.
The previous political administration had entirely failed to pass on the information about this project to the current officials.
This raises an important question about how communication breakdowns in urban planning can threaten the very social cohesion a project is trying to build.
Wait, so the local government didn't even know this was happening until the last minute? How do you drop an ex-inmate housing project on a neighborhood with zero warning without sparking a complete and I may we, why, not in my backyard disaster?
You really don't. When a city introduces a sensitive social project into a residential area, trust is the absolute most valuable currency. Municipal governments rely on a delicate social contract with their citizens.
Right.
If the local government, and by extension the residents, feel ambushed, it instantly breeds suspicion.
Because nobody likes waking up to find out a controversial housing project has been greenlit across the street from their local park without any input.
Exactly. The community will automatically assume something is being hidden from them because of the lack of transparency. It transforms what the developers intend as a collaborative neighborhood improvement into an adversarial uphill battle.
So the panic was justified.
The anxiety of the Tétreaultville citizens is a completely rational response to a sudden, opaque change in their immediate environment.
Because of that massive political fumble and the very natural anxiety of the citizens, the borough had to act incredibly fast. They were forced to lay down some serious non-negotiable ground rules to make this cohabitation work.
Yeah, they had to attempt to regain the neighborhood's trust.
Right. Councilor Henot-Rattel confirmed that the borough imposed rigorous guidelines regarding who is actually allowed to move into this building.
The future tenants will be subject to strict exclusion criteria, which the John Howard Society has firmly committed to respecting.
What kind of criteria?
Well, according to the guidelines negotiated with the borough, there is absolute zero tolerance for any person with a criminal record related to sexual offenses or violence against children.
Zero tolerance.
None. And on top of that, the report notes that residents must possess a sufficient level of autonomy regarding mental health and substance abuse.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. If the criteria are this incredibly strict, filtering out severe offenses and requiring a high level of mental health autonomy, are the developers just skimming the easiest cases to ensure the project looks like a statistical success? Or is this simply the required baseline to make a project like this palatable to a deeply nervous public?
What's fascinating here is that the strict rules act as a necessary filter that completely changes the fundamental nature of the facility.
How so?
By requiring a baseline of autonomy regarding substance abuse and mental health, you are shifting the building away from being a purely rehabilitative space, which would require intensive, clinical, 247 medical interventions, and turning it into an integrated community asset.
Okay, I get it. If you're dropping a facility into a quiet neighborhood, you just can't have a building operating like an intensive care unit for behavioral crises.
Precisely. If the goal is sustainable social reintegration in a residential area, the individuals placed there must be at a stage in their journey where they are actually ready and capable of being good neighbors.
Right.
The exclusion criteria outlined by the borough are about matching the right individuals to the right environment. You cannot ask a quiet, family-oriented neighborhood to suddenly absorb individuals who require high-level institutional supervision.
Well, that would just cause so much friction.
And the resulting hostility wouldn't be conducive to the individual's recovery either. The ecosystem just has to be balanced.
Because the neighborhood's anxiety was already so high from the political communication failure, the developers didn't just have to be careful about who moved in. They had to be incredibly careful about how they actually built the structure.
Oh, yeah. The physical construction.
Right, which leads us to the physical blueprint and the logistics of the construction. They are being executed just as strategically as the tenant rules.
The execution involves a really strong coalition of partners. We already mentioned the John Howard Society of Quebec acting as the owner and manager.
And Bâtir quartier is stepping in as the promoter and coordinator.
Yes. They're a well-known social economy enterprise in the province that specializes in community housing. And they are working alongside institutional partners, namely the City of Montreal and the MercierHochelagaMaisonneuve borough, to handle the regulatory integration and secure the funding.
Constructing an 18-unit building obviously comes with a significant price tag. The budget is estimated to be between $6 and $8 million, relying heavily on provincial and federal social housing grants.
It's a major investment.
It is. But the timeline is the detail that really stands out to me. Construction is slated to begin in fall of 2026. The developers plan to run neighborhood consultations alongside the build, but the proposed move-in date is spring 2027. I mean, a fall start and a spring move-in is blisteringly fast for an $8 million, three-story building. Is this speed just an economic efficiency? Or is it a deliberate strategy to minimize the window for neighborhood opposition to mount during a long, noisy build?
It's definitely both. The speed is achieved because the developers are utilizing prefabricated or modular construction.
Oh, like clicking together giant Lego blocks off-site.
Exactly like that. Instead of building the entire structure on the vacant lot from the ground up, they're constructing it off-site. Think of it less like traditional building and more like manufacturing an airplane on an assembly line.
Okay.
When you build an airplane, you don't build it outside on the runway in the rain, subject to weather delays and daylight hours. You build it inside a massive climate-controlled factory.
So while the city is digging the foundation on the Labert Street, the walls, the plumbing, and the electrical systems are being installed in a factory somewhere else in Quebec.
Yeah, it allows for parallel processing, which dramatically cuts down the timeline. The finished modules are then transported to the lot and essentially just slotted into place.
That's incredibly fast.
Now, regarding the strategy behind this speed, yes, it limits the duration of the build, which outpaces lingering opposition. But more importantly, it drastically reduces the physical friction that causes NIMBYism in the first place.
Because a lot of neighborhood anger isn't solely about the eventual tenants, is it?
No, it's often triggered by the agonizing reality of living next to a loud, messy construction site for 2 years.
Yeah, the endless beeping of cement trucks backing up at 6 in the morning, the dust coating everyone's windows, the road closures.
It drives people crazy. By using modular construction, the developers remove that massive point of daily friction, The neighborhood doesn't suffer through years of disruption.
Plus, the report notes it makes excellent economic sense for the region, too.
Definitely. It injects capital into the Quebec manufacturing industry where the modules are actually built, and it significantly reduces expensive, unpredictable on-site labor costs.
So it's a highly efficient, highly controlled way to deliver a social housing project.
Exactly.
And if the physical construction is designed to be highly efficient, the report argues that the long-term ripple effects on the surrounding community are designed to be entirely transformative.
Right. The developers are projecting major financial and social impacts.
Starting with the immediate economics of the neighborhood.
Well, replacing a squatter-filled wasteland with a brand-new, architecturally integrated building is projected to stabilize and potentially increase the property values of the adjacent lots on Notre Dame Street East.
Which makes sense. An abandoned lot drags down the perceived value of an entire block.
Right. A new, maintained building reverses that trend.
The developers also point out that you are adding 18 autonomous adult residents to the area. That is 18 new people buying groceries, utilizing the local pharmacy, and putting money directly into the local businesses of Tétreaultville.
It's an economic boost for sure.
But the most staggering statistic in this entire report, and really the entire justification for the project, relates to the social impact on crime. The report claims that access to stable and affordable housing reduces criminal recidivism rates by over 40%.
A 40% reduction in reoffense is a massive statistical shift.
It's huge.
To understand the mechanics of why that number is so high, we have to look at how instability directly causes crime. We discussed earlier how impossible it is to get a job without a physical address or a bank account.
Right.
When a person is experiencing homelessness or extreme housing insecurity, they are living in a constant state of physiological stress. Survival mode dictates all their actions.
So stable housing removes that primal panic.
Exactly. It provides a literal foundation where a person can safely store their belongings, sleep without fear, and focus on higher-level needs like employment and therapy, rather than just surviving the night.
It provides the required environment for the behavioral autonomy the borough is demanding.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it proves that targeted social housing policy is, in reality, one of the most effective forms of criminal justice policy a city can implement.
Oh.
When a government provides a person with a secure home, they are directly investing in long-term public safety. They are breaking the cycle of reoffense that is so frequently triggered by the chaos of homelessness.
So what does this all mean? Because this is the part of the report that presents the biggest paradox.
The security paradox, yeah.
Jean-Claude Bernheim from the John Howard Society pointed out that they are eliminating a problematic hotspot, the unlit, unmonitored squatter lot, and replacing it with a structured living environment. We're replacing a scary, unsupervised squatter camp with a building full of ex-inmates, and the promised result is actually more security because they act as a 247 informal neighborhood watch. It's like flipping the script on who keeps a neighborhood safe.
It is a totally counterintuitive concept, I agree.
Yeah.
But it relies on the urban planning theory of invested occupancy.
Invested occupancy.
Right. You have residents who are actively committed to rebuilding their lives, living in a facility that requires them to maintain a standard of behavior. Because their housing is conditional on their positive integration, they have a deeply vested interest in keeping their immediate environment safe, quiet, and free of illegal activity.
So they effectively become the eyes and ears of that corner.
Precisely.
And securing that specific corner is vital because it sits right across from Promenade-Bellerive Park. The report notes that this park attracts tens of thousands of visitors annually. By placing a monitored, structured building at that intersection, the developers aim to make access to the park much safer and much more welcoming for East Montreal families.
Families who previously had to walk past an abandoned, unpredictable lot just to reach the green space.
Right.
The developers are basically banking on the idea that this building will completely alter the psychological geography of the neighborhood. A space that the community once associated with anxiety and neglect is supposed to become a space associated with stability and continuous informal surveillance.
It is a fascinating case study in how cities attempt to manage space and human behavior.
It really is.
So, just to briefly recap the core thesis of the report we've looked at today, this project in Tétreaultville is attempting to be far more than just pouring concrete and putting a roof over someone's head.
Right.
It's a carefully managed, highly strategic urban intervention. Despite the initial political communication failures that angered the borough, the developers argue that the strict cohabitation rules and the efficient, quiet, modular construction are designed to create a genuine win-win scenario. They're aiming to provide a stable launchpad for individuals who have served their time and are actively choosing to rebuild their lives.
And in return, the proposition is that the Tétreaultville community gets a safer, more economically vibrant, and aesthetically pleasing neighborhood.
Exactly.
The report ultimately argues that with rigorous planning, strict filtering, and the right architectural approach, social integration and urban revitalization do not have to be competing interests. They can be engineered to actively support one another.
Exploring this Montreal case study equips you to view developments in your own cities with a more analytical eye. The next time you see a new housing block going up, look past the scaffolding. Try to see the hidden social machinery behind the zoning permits. Ask yourself who the building is for and what underlying community problem the developers are actually trying to solve.
There's always a bigger picture.
Always.
Yeah.
Which leaves us with one final, lingering question to mull over. If the data presented in this report is accurate, if we know for a fact that stable housing drops recidivism by a massive 40% by giving people the foundation they need to survive, and that these projects can actually turn a dangerous neighborhood corner into a secure one, shouldn't cities be mandated to integrate these second chance projects into every single new urban development rather than hiding them on the outskirts of town? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you next time.
Thank you for watching this video. For more news and in-depth reports, visit wikiresidence.ca. All our content is available in text and audio formats across all your devices. Please feel free to share your comments with us.